Most smart building tools stop at insights. You get alarms, alerts, a fancy dashboard, and often nothing changes. Today we ask a different question. What if the building fixed itself? My guest is Derek John, COO at CopperTree Analytics. He's spent the last decade pushing the industry from fault detection and diagnostics to action with automated system optimization and automated commissioning. We get into what it takes to move from detection to decision, why trust is the real bottleneck, and how to design guardrails so software can safely write back to your BAS. Beyond the dashboard into outcomes. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts, a podcast for busy people building climate solutions. We spotlight founders, builders, operators, and investors doing the hard work behind real progress. I'm Ben, co-founder of Element 6. We connect climate tech companies with the people who make scale possible. Let's get into it. So, Derek, thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Quick Cuts. For those that might not be aware of you, can you let everybody know what you do?
Ben, thanks for having me, and great to reconnect after London. My name is Derek John, Chief Operating Officer at CopperTree Analytics. Been with the company for 11 years now, and we are a pioneer in the building analytics space. And most people would know us as an FDD company, even though we do more than just FDD. So we started in 2012 with one big vision, which is to help buildings see, think, and act. And with FDD, we got to the seeing part. And now through new tools we've added to the toolkit, particularly automated system optimization, which is the ability to write back to buildings from the cloud to implement sequence updates or fix software problems, and automated commissioning, which is the ability to perform remote functional testing on terminal systems. We are entering that thinking and acting stage. So yes, insights or just knowing what the problems are do not mean impact. So you got to have either someone on site to fix the issues or an automated solution to implement the recommended fixes or upgrades from the FDD platform. And that's where both ASO and on the functional testing side, ACX comes into play. And my passion at CopperTree sits at this intersection of technology and buildings and people, because at the end of the day, the smartest system in the building, in the world, it still requires humans who care. And it's an absolute pleasure when you work with people who care about the built environment, and I wouldn't do it any other way.
Okay. All right. Well, we are thrilled to have you. And let's start talking about going beyond the dashboard when analytics actually takes the wheel. The problem with stopping at insight, I think, is that the industry's been in love with fault detection for years, which is great. But as you've said before, insight alone doesn't equal impact. So what's the biggest issue with systems that alert but don't act?
You know, it's interesting, Ben, looking back 15 years ago, conversations in our industry were mostly about big data and IoT. And back then, no one even knew what FDD was. We had to do a lot of market education. Fast forward to today, FDD systems aren't just deployed, they're celebrated, right, for delivering real measurable impact. And we've seen large portfolio clients of ours rack up multi-year $1 million savings. And that shift from what is FDD to give me more FDD, show me more FDD, it's been a real mark. But those sorts of results come when the insights generated by the FDD system are acted on and they're addressed. And insights without that follow through is like, I like to say, it's like buying a treadmill and then using it as an expensive laundry rack. And we've all done that or seen that at some point. It looks cool, but it just doesn't move the needle. It doesn't move you forward. So sometimes we do not have enough people in buildings who can implement these improvements or recommendations that are presented. Or we have the right people, but their time is so precious that they shouldn't be reprogramming systems and tuning something that actually can be done from the cloud. And that's precisely where automated system optimization, or even the commissioning bit where you can remotely perform functional testing on terminal equipment, comes into play. So we have seen the opportunity is pretty tremendous, right? Across the built environment, the optimization gap is enormous. Studies have shown simply by tuning existing equipment, refining control logics, and this is without any sort of capital upgrades, buildings can boost efficiency up to 30% and significantly cut emissions without compromising on comfort. So that's where alerts have to lead to, right? You can't have just alerts and not be acted on, and that is the biggest issue, the lost potential from insights or alerts not being acted on.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So turning recommendations then into results, which is what you finished on, we keep hearing the phrase actionable insights, but as we've talked about, action usually still depends on a human reacting to a notification. What does it actually take to automate that next step, and why is it still, do you think, the exception, not the norm?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the truth about actionable insight is that unless there is true adoption, it stops right at the insight part and never quite makes it to the action part. And I often say that automation, especially when we're talking about what I'm discussing today, which is automated system optimization or remotely testing your terminal units from the cloud, it begins with trust, right? You can't run these systems in your building if you don't trust them, and you won't. I distinctly remember one of our first automated system optimization clients. They piloted the system in one floor of a Class A commercial building in Canada. They wanted to see how it works, build the trust, and then from there on, you ramp up. So in that very building, we started with one floor, verified how the system works, validated savings measures, implemented. We're racking up, thousands and thousands of savings. And then once you see the result that you're getting from a system like that, then the building level expansion or the portfolio level expansion can come. But you don't typically see someone starting with a portfolio wide expansion of these newer technologies. And FTD is getting there, right? With FTD, you start with a building and you easily move into that portfolio level expansion. With these newer technologies, it may take time to build that trust, but you start with the limited scope first, perhaps, and then with each successful cycle, each verified adjustment, it brightens the trust. So to move from a project from simple detection to the real direction, I think there are two things that are pretty mandatory. One is you need confidence in your analytics. You need to know that your analytics is actually working, it's showing you the right problems. And then secondly, you need crystal clear logic around that decision making. What's allowed to change, when, and where is that line really drawn? Because that's important, because you want to make sure that people in the building, i.e. the operators and the facilities team, they know what this system is doing in the building. You don't want that to be hidden or something that they are not aware of. That sort of seamless understanding is important for the system to then work efficiently and help win trust and get to the savings we all want.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Can we dip in a little bit around the idea now of culture before code? You've seen that even with the right tools, results will vary. What's the cultural or operational mindset shift that makes the difference between adoption and stagnation?
Yeah. That's the part where most smart building projects either fly or they fall flat. It usually has very little to do or nothing to do with technology, because the technology is here. And for me, to make adoption truly stick, three ingredients have to come together. And I often talk about this in conferences that I attend because the technology piece is important. Don't get me wrong. But as I said, if you have a reliable technology and it's proven to do the job, you've got that sorted out. And then there are two other components, right? One is having the right people involved in the project. So that would mean internally the staff within the organization and or bringing the right vendors in place. Because if you're looking at your BAS sequences and if you don't have internally within the organization people who understand control logics, maybe you're actually bringing in your controls contractor to take a look at things, right? It depends on the different type of organizations that we work with. So the right people, that's important. And then what I think is most important is that culture piece, having the right culture, a culture where the organization values progress over perfection. Because you got to move the needle. You've got to progress, and you're not going to get to 30% savings in one day. But you got to make those consistent savings happen so that you can get to the promised land, so to speak. And you have to also, as an organization, and internally for us, for our clients, partners, always advocate for learning curves. It shouldn't be seen as risk, but it's the price of innovation, right? You got to do it once, twice, get a feel for it, and then from there scale. So to me, if a team sees automation as losing control, they'll dig in their heels. But when they realize automation actually amplifies their expertise, that is where they can pass on the boring, repetitive work to the system so that they can focus their time on more deeper problems that really need their time for assessment and fixing, right? So automation doesn't replace people. It just releases them from the mundane and the repetitive so that they can go fix the more important things.
Yeah. I still feel like that has to be a message that hasn't fully sunk in yet to a lot of people, particularly with the advent of AI. There's still that sort of fear. Let's focus on autonomy then with guardrails. I think that's a good segue. Letting software right back to the building does raise some questions from trust all the way to liability. How do you think we can build confidence in automated decision making, and where should the actual boundaries be?
Well, the confidence in automation, it comes from every decision being traceable and reversible and explainable, because those three things have to come together. The traceability piece is important because when we talk about automated system optimization or automated commissioning with our clients, we talk about the transparency piece because, again, as I mentioned before, you don't want a system in the building doing its own thing and no one knows what it's doing. It just doesn't work. You've got to build that trust, and traceability is a key part of that. And then it has to be reversible because if there is a particular change that the team on site felt, you know what, we want to override it, we want to reverse it for whatever reason, you've got to allow the team inside the building to do that because they still run the building day in, day out. And the explainable part is important too, because you can have systems, smart systems writing into the building and implementing changes, but why is it doing what it's doing? And what value am I getting as the client or the client's rep to make sure that this should continue on? And the explainable part, therefore, becomes important too. So building trust, it's never an instant win. It's earned by showing that the system actually works and it's reliable and that small things can be handled by it. And sometimes more complex things, because here at CopperTree, we are big fans of ASHRAE Guideline 36 sequences. And what we do is we implement those sequences in buildings that do not have those sequences. These are vetted sequences. People understand it, and they can reap a whole lot of savings. But most buildings don't have these G36 sequences. So rather than going for more sophisticated things, why not implement G36 in buildings from the cloud? Everyone knows what it'll do and the savings it'll get you. And that just makes that whole process more obvious. It's repetitive, low risk, tweaks, corrections and improvements are guided by the industry standard. It helps with the overall process. So the healthiest building automation I would say it's a partnership, right? And it's not a handover to autonomy, but always with an override if that needs to happen in the building, or with a rationale behind every choice that's being made.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So finally, as we draw to our last question, where is the simplicity, Derek? We keep overcomplicating in this industry. It's got a habit of over-engineering problems, but sometimes stepping back and asking why are we doing it this way reveals, a much simpler fix. Can you share a moment for listeners where questioning assumptions led to a smarter, more elegant solution?
Yes, certainly, Ben. I'll stick with automated commissioning for this response because as buildings get more complex, especially new construction, you got to have a system that allows you to automatically commission systems in the building without having more and more people be on site, number one. And you got to have technology that helps you reduce the error or minimize or really cancel out the error part in commissioning. And we do that with automated commissioning in that it allows us to remotely functional test 100% of everything in the building, every terminal unit, every system. And it's not just the thoroughness part, because you've got to make sure that at the end of the day, the building that's being delivered is high quality and it's consistent programming wise across the board when you have similar systems programmed a certain way. And you should do all of this while reducing labor and human error, right? The functional testing piece, therefore, it really helps when it's done remotely and you have that level of thoroughness. It helps with warranty management, baseline performance that now really becomes easier, and you can get to those results quicker and make sure that the buildings are indeed performing the way you need them to when it's being delivered to the client. So solutions like that, they don't just come from clipboards. They come from data-driven clarity and questioning old habits, which is what these new systems that we have delivered to the market will do for our clients.
Okay, well, that is a whistle-stop tour on everything FDD and more. Thank you ever so much, Derek, for your time and your insights. I really took a lot from your simple but powerful and proactive approach. So thank you for your time.
Glad we could do this, Ben. All the best to you and the team.
That cut right to the point, and a few takeaways worth underlining, I thought. One, insight without action is wasted potential. Dashboards do not deliver savings by themselves. Close the loop with either people who can execute or automation that implements the fix. Two, start small to earn trust. Prove it on the floor or one site, verify the results, and then scale. Third, put culture before code. The teams that win value progress over perfection. Bring the right controls partners in early and see automation as an amplifier for people, not actually a replacement. Fourth, autonomy needs guardrails. Every change should be traceable, reversible, and explainable. That's how you build confidence and keep operators in the loop. Fifth, standard first, fancy later. Implement well understood sequences and use automated commissioning to test 100% of equipment. Fewer clipboards, fewer errors, faster warranties, better baselines. Thanks so much for watching Quick Cuts. Short episodes, sharp insights, no filter. Catch you next time. You've been listening to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts. If you're building in climate tech, subscribe to hear more from the people making it happen.